Imagine waking up one perfect suburban morning to the stench of death in your backyard. Your pride and joy, the lush native plant garden you'd spent 2 years turning into a thriving pollinator paradise, was now a wilted, oily nightmare. Leaves curled black at the edges, stems drooping like they'd been dipped in acid. And as if that wasn't enough, water was rushing through your yard like a broken dam, flooding the lower section where you'd planted rare wetland species. But the real gut punch came when you spotted the crisp white envelope nailed to your front gate. The seal was unmistakable. Environmental Protection Agency. The letter accused you of illegal chemical discharge and habitat destruction. My name is Ryan Brooks. For 20 years I was the guy the big corporations feared, senior investigator for the EPA, the one who followed toxic trails and brought down polluters in $1,000 suits. I burned out hard. Quit cold. My wife Emily and I cashed out every penny from our city life and bought this corner lot in Sterling Grove, a so-called idyllic gated community in suburban Texas. I wanted grass under my feet instead of concrete, birds instead of sirens. I turned my oversized backyard into something special. Not the boring manicured lawn the HOA demanded, but a living ecosystem with native wildflowers, a small vegetable patch, a rain garden that actually helped the local aquifer, and a little pollinator haven buzzing with life. It was healing me as much as the land. The quiet rhythm of watering at dawn, watching bees dance, feeling the soil under my nails, that was my new purpose. The neighbors mostly ignored it at first. A few even complimented the butterflies. Until Victoria Langford showed up. She arrived in a gleaming white SUV one sunny Saturday morning, dressed like she was attending a country club board meeting. Perfect blonde helmet hair that never moved in the Texas wind, beige pantsuit pressed to within an inch of its life, smile sharp enough to slice through steel. "Mr. Brooks," she purred, extending a manicured hand while her driver idled behind her like a personal bodyguard. "I'm Victoria Langford, president of the Sterling Grove Homeowners Association. The board has authorized a very generous offer for your property. We envision it as a lovely community green space and event lawn. Think of the legacy it would leave for our families." I leaned on my rake, sweat dripping down my neck, and gave her the politest smile I could muster. "Appreciate the thought, Mrs. Langford. Truly. But this isn't for sale. This garden, this house, it's our home now. Our legacy." For less than a second the mask slipped. Her eyes went dead cold, lips thinning into a razor line that could have drawn blood. Pure predatory rage flashed across that perfectly made-up face. Then the smile snapped back like nothing happened. "How unfortunate," she said, voice dripping honey over broken glass. "We'll be in touch." She slid back into her SUV without another word, tires kicking up just enough gravel to dust my new tomato seedlings. I stood there watching the dust settle and felt that old familiar chill crawl up my spine. I'd seen that exact look across interrogation tables for 2 decades, the look of someone who believes the rules are for other people. Someone who will burn the world down if it stands between her and what she wants. The first 3 weeks after that visit were death by 1,000 paper cuts, the kind that make you laugh through clenched teeth because the absurdity is almost impressive. It started with a certified letter fining me $500 for non-compliant landscaping. My garden didn't match the uniform aesthetic standards spelled out in the HOA's 87-page rulebook, the same rulebook that apparently banned anything taller than 6 inches or more colorful than beige. Then the anonymous complaints rolled in like clockwork. Monday morning the fire department rumbled up in a massive red engine, after an urgent call about a hazardous brush pile. Chief Morales climbed out, took one look at my meticulously layered compost bin a safe distance from the house and just sighed. "Sorry, Ryan. Call's a call. We gotta log it." He shook his head like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Folks get weird ideas around here." Wednesday brought the health department, 2 fresh-faced inspectors in county polos here to test for potential mosquito breeding in standing water. They spent 2 hours poking at my perfectly screened rain barrels, while I explained how the system actually prevented flooding. They left with samples and blank faces. Results came back clean, of course. But the point wasn't the results. The point was the time wasted. Friday it was animal control. A stern woman with a catchpole demanded to see the vicious roaming pack, terrorizing the neighborhood. My 2 golden retrievers, Max and Luna, were sprawled on the porch snoring like old men after a long walk. She filed the report anyway. Another black mark next to the name Ryan Brooks. And the sheriff's deputies became background noise. At least twice a week a cruiser would pull up. Deputy Ramirez, who by now knew me by first name, would just shake his head as he got out. "Let me guess, Ryan, another noise complaint about your gardening equipment at 9 in the morning on a Saturday. You know the drill." He'd glance around at my perfectly normal suburban yard and mutter under his breath, "This is harassment, man." But they used the magic words safety and anonymous, and our hands are tied. The psychological grind was brutal. I started sleeping in shifts, ears straining for engines in the dark. Every official envelope made my stomach clench. My garden work fell behind. Weeding took twice as long because I was constantly looking over my shoulder. Emily watched me getting grayer by the day, her vet tech hands gentle on my shoulders. "She's trying to break you," she said one night on the porch swing, fireflies blinking around us like tiny witnesses. "Just like those corporate crooks you used to chase. They think they're untouchable because they wear the right suits and smile the right smiles." I nodded slowly, staring at the dark tree line. "Yeah. But here's the thing, I know exactly how these people operate. They think the neighborhood is their little kingdom. They preach community spirit, while they weaponize paperwork to destroy anyone who doesn't bow." The neighborhood Facebook group turned into a passive-aggressive circus. Victoria posted daily updates about maintaining property values and respecting community standards, tagging photos of my garden with sad face emojis and captions like, "Some residents seem to think rules don't apply to them." People who used to wave from their perfect lawns now stared straight ahead when I walked the dog. I became the crazy guy with the jungle yard, the outsider threatening their precious resale prices. The black humor of it all hit me hardest during one particularly ridiculous visit. The same woman who'd complained about my unsightly bees pollinating her roses now had her own lawn sprayed with chemicals that killed every beneficial insect within 50 yards. Yet somehow I was the problem. These people would rather have a sterile, plastic-perfect suburb than actual life. They'd rather poison the earth quietly than admit their perfect community was built on control. I endured. I documented every fine, every visit, every snide comment in a quiet little notebook. I installed extra security cameras discreetly around the property, the kind that blend into the landscaping. I waited. Because deep down I knew the real attack wasn't the paperwork. The real attack was still coming. And when it hit, it would be designed to end me for good. The silence after the last deputy visit was worse than the sirens. For 10 straight days nothing. No letters, no cruisers, no passive-aggressive posts. Victoria even gave me a little wave at the community mailbox one afternoon. Her smile so sweet it could rot teeth. That predatory stillness put ice in my veins. I knew predators. They don't quit. They reload. The strike came on a moonless Wednesday night. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it. Not really. Around 2 a.m., Max and Luna started growling low in their throats, pacing the bedroom door. I heard a faint high-pitched hum on the edge of sleep, dismissed it as cicadas or a distant drone from the highway, rolled over and went back to uneasy dreams. Next morning the horror waited. I stepped onto the back porch with my first cup of coffee, expecting the usual dew-kissed green. Instead the air hit me wrong, bitter, metallic, like a hospital corridor crossed with an industrial spill. My coffee forgotten, I walked down the steps, boots sinking into grass that already felt wrong. The entire backyard glistened with an oily chemical sheen under the rising sun. Tomato vines I'd babed from seed curled black at the edges, leaves limp and waxy. Native wildflowers I'd planted for the monarchs drooped like they'd been dipped in death. Every single plant in my 2-year sanctuary, peppers, squash, the rare wetland species in the lower rain garden, coated in the same greasy film. My heart hammered as I followed the gurgle of too much water. The lower section was a swamp. A foot of muddy runoff covered everything and the source was obvious. The stormwater drainage pipe at the property edge, The one tied into the protected creek corridor the county had designated as habitat for local frogs and birds, had been deliberately cracked open. Fresh shovel marks still visible in the wet earth. 2 attacks in one night. One chemical. One physical. Coordinated. Professional. Then I saw the envelope. Tacked neatly to the front gate post like a calling card. Thick expensive paper. The eagle and globe seal I knew better than my own reflection. Official notice of federal investigation pursuant to credible report. Violation of the Clean Water Act. Unauthorized discharge of hazardous materials. Destruction of protected habitat. Significant financial penalties and potential criminal charges. I sank to my knees right there in the muddy road, the letter fluttering from numb fingers. It was masterful. Diabolical. She'd poisoned my garden, flooded the runoff straight into the protected creek, then anonymously reported me to my own former agency. The same agency I'd spent 20 years defending. Now I was the suspected eco-terrorist. Checkmate. Emily found me there. She didn't cry or rage. She just wrapped her arms around me, took the letter gently, and said nothing for a long minute. Then she pulled back, eyes fierce. This isn't just an attack on a gardener, Ryan. This is an attack on the investigator she thinks retired. She got sloppy. People like her always do when they think they're gods. Start thinking like the man I married, the one who hunted predators for a living. Her words cut through the fog. I stood up, back straighter. Walked inside, pulled my old dusty Pelican field kit from the closet. Specimen bags, soil samplers, pH strips, digital microscope, old friends. When I stepped back outside, the world had changed. It wasn't my ruined sanctuary anymore. It was a crime scene. And I was the lead investigator again. I worked for hours in the brutal Texas sun. Took soil samples from a dozen spots, bagged affected leaves with chain of custody labels, photographed the cracked pipe from every angle. My hidden cameras had caught it, blurry but clear enough. A high-end agricultural drone moving in a precise grid pattern at 3:07 a.m., spraying death from the sky. I cleaned up, dialed a number I hadn't called in years. David Chun answered on the third ring. Ryan? My God, I heard you went off-grid to grow tomatoes. David, I said, voice hard now, I'm not calling to complain. I'm calling to hand you a fully formed conspiracy case on a silver platter. The Sterling Grove HOA is running a criminal enterprise. And I'm going to prove it. The silence on the line stretched. Then David exhaled. A RICO case against a suburban HOA, you know the bar is sky high. Not a dispute over lawn height, I told him. Systematic harassment. Property destruction. Wire fraud with burner phones. Conspiracy to violate the Clean Water Act. They're extorting property through intimidation for financial gain. Sound familiar? He paused again. Stay put. Don't touch anything else. I'll be on a plane tomorrow. The hunt was on. While David's team worked quietly in Washington, I pulled threads from the ground up. Sent samples to an independent lab in Dallas run by an old expert witness. No chance of bureaucratic leaks. Results came back. Custom-blended defoliant, non-commercial, traceable to maybe 4 labs nationwide. The kind used for clearing land for luxury golf courses. Golf courses. Victoria's community green space vision suddenly made 6 sense. David's subpoenas hit the labs. One matched. Buyer. A shell company called Premier Community Maintenance. Payments traced straight from the HOA's beautification fund. A line item that magically appeared 6 months after I moved in. Tens of thousands funneled through the shell. The drone was a Harrier Pro 7 high-end AG model. FAA records showed only 2 registered in the entire county. One belonged to the shell company. We had the weapon. We had the money. Now we needed the human link. The treasurer, 28-year-old Tyler Reeves, fresh out of college, ambitious, clearly in over his head, had signed every authorization. David sent a polite, voluntary interview letter. We met in a bland hotel conference room. Tyler walked in sweating already. David started soft. Then slid the shell company docs across the table. Tyler's face went white. I leaned forward, voice quiet. I spent 20 years chasing guys who thought they were untouchable, Tyler. You're not one of them. You're just the kid who got caught in the machine. Help us and you walk. Stay loyal and you go down with her. He broke in under 10 minutes. Sobbing. Told us everything, how Victoria personally ordered the drone run, how she called it encouraging a stubborn resident to see reason, how she kept a second set of books. He handed over the thumb drive himself. The predator had left tracks. And I was about to follow them straight to her throne. The deposition room smelled like expensive coffee and fear. Victoria Langford swept in, flanked by 3 high-priced Dallas lawyers in suits that probably cost more than my first house. She looked immaculate, blonde helmet still perfect, beige pantsuit replaced by power red today, radiating the confidence of someone who'd never lost. She barely glanced at me, dismissing the simple gardener her lawyers had dragged in. For 2 hours her team objected and stonewalled while David laid the groundwork. Victoria answered every question with smug, clipped arrogance. Of course I have no knowledge of any chemicals, Mr. Chin. We simply maintain community standards. Then David changed the temperature. Mrs. Langford, are you familiar with a non-commercial defoliant known as Formula 7B? Absolutely not. He slid the lab report across the polished table. Because this shows that exact chemical was found all over Mr. Brooks's property. Her smile tightened. One lawyer whispered in her ear. David kept going, voice like winter steel. And this invoice shows the same formula purchased by Premier Community Maintenance, the shell company your treasurer just testified you personally instructed him to create. Another document. The FAA drone registration. Victoria's fingers drummed once on the table, the first crack. And finally, David said, placing a thick bound affidavit in the center like a loaded gun. Are you familiar with Mr. Tyler Reeves? Our treasurer, she snapped. A junior accountant. David smiled for the first time. He's our star witness now. This is his 50-page sworn statement detailing every order you gave. The shell company, the secret budget, the specific instructions to encourage Mr. Brooks to sell by any means necessary, including the drone run. He placed the black thumb drive beside it. And here's the real ledger you told him to keep off the books. The room went graveyard silent. Victoria's face drained of color. The marble facade didn't just crack. It shattered. For the first time she looked small. Not a queen. Not a titan of the subdivision. Just a common criminal caught under fluorescent lights. Her lead lawyer started babbling about misunderstandings and overzealous community service. Victoria opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. I locked eyes with her across the table. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just held the stare until she looked away first. The war was over. She took the plea deal 3 weeks later to avoid a public trial. 18 years federal time. No parole for 12. The Sterling Grove HOA was declared a corrupt enterprise under RICO statutes, dissolved by court order. Its covenants voided. The pristine gates that once kept the wrong people out were ordered permanently open. Assets seized. Restitution from her personal accounts and the seized funds was substantial, enough to rebuild my garden twice over. But money was never the point. Emily and I spent the next year flushing toxins, amending soil, planting cover crops. The lower flooded area we turned into a permanent protected wetland preserve. Native plants, a small boardwalk, open to the whole community now. At the entrance we put up a simple wooden sign. Sterling Grove Creek Sanctuary, open to all. No gates. No rules. Just life. The neighborhood changed too. Deputy Ramirez, now Sheriff Ramirez, showed up one afternoon in civilian clothes. Ryan, on behalf of the department, we're sorry. We knew something was off. We're rewriting protocols because of what you did. He shook my hand like he meant it. I started the Brooks Justice Fund with the restitution money. Free investigative and legal help for anyone caught in abusive HOA crosshairs. Once a month we host workshops in the backyard. Young homeowners, law students, farmers. I don't just teach them about native plants. I teach them how to document, how to build cases, how to fight when the system gets weaponized. 2 years later, the garden is stronger than ever, vibrant, resilient, buzzing again. I sit on the porch some evenings watching the sunset paint the sky gold. Emily beside me, Max and Luna at our feet. The peace I found isn't the quiet, solitary kind I thought I wanted. It's earned. Stronger. The kind that comes from taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and turning it into a shield for everyone else. So tell me in the comments, be honest. In a world where HOAs claim they're just protecting property values and community standards, who was really destroying the neighborhood? The guy quietly growing flowers and vegetables for the bees, or the Karen who poisoned the earth, flooded protected land, and tried to weaponize the federal government to steal a man's home? Was fighting back with intelligence and patience justice, or did I become the villain by exposing their little kingdom of control? You decide.